Ever catch yourself wishing for just a little more calm, a little more presence in the middle of, everything?
It's a pretty universal longing, isn't it?
Definitely. And that's what this whole deep dive is about. A while back, you mentioned being curious about Buddhist meditation, mindfulness, that kind of thing.
Right.
So we thought, why not go straight to the source? We're diving into teachings from a retreat led by Ajahn Kemasri.
Oh, nice. He's a well-respected teacher in the Thai forest tradition.
Exactly. And he really gets to the heart of cultivating awareness in a way that just makes sense.
Yeah.
We'll be exploring excerpts from his book, Les Quatre Fondements de l'Attention.
Which translates to the 4 foundations of mindfulness.
Exactly. And rather than just throwing concepts at you, we're going to kind of guide you through the retreat experience.
Yeah, we'll unpack some of those practical techniques, those insights you can actually use, even if you've never tried meditation before in your life.
Exactly. No judgment here. Now, one thing I found really interesting, Ajahn Kemasri, he starts his retreat in a kind of unique way.
Oh, how so?
He begins with a chant that's usually shared at the end of the day.
Interesting. I'm curious to see where this goes.
Me too.
Yeah.
But it's actually pretty brilliant when you think about it.
Okay, I'm listening.
This particular chant, it focuses on sharing the benefits of your practice, not just for yourself, but for all beings.
Ah, I see. It's a way of setting the tone right from the start, shifting from that kind of self-focused intention to something much broader, more generous.
It's like that feeling you get when you do something nice for someone else, and you just feel better for it. It's like you're tapping into something bigger than yourself.
And that's really at the heart of Buddhist practice, isn't it? Recognizing that interconnectedness, how our inner states ripple outward.
Totally. Okay, so we're starting with that expansive view, connecting to something bigger than ourselves. Where do we go from there?
From there, it's about gently turning inward, taking stock. How's your body feeling right now? What thoughts are kind of floating around in your mind? Any expectations, maybe even anxieties that you're bringing to this exploration? Just notice them.
Yeah, it's so easy to just brush over that part. We want to jump right to the relaxation part, right? Without acknowledging those initial thoughts and feelings.
Right, but that's where the real work begins, with awareness. Just noticing those things. Without judgment, it creates space for us to go deeper.
And that's where this idea of Satipatthana comes in.
The 4 foundations of mindfulness.
Exactly. It's a cornerstone of Buddhist practice.
Yeah.
And we're going to dive deeper into what that actually means in just a bit. So how do we cultivate this mindful awareness? How do we actually do it?
Well, Ajahn Kemasri, he starts with a really powerful visualization.
Okay, I like where this is going.
It's one that you can come back to anytime, anywhere. He guides you to imagine this column of light running through your spine, grounding you in the present moment.
I love that imagery. It's like finding that steady center even when everything feels chaotic around you.
Yes, exactly. And then against this stable core, you become aware of your breath. That constant ebb and flow, the ever-changing nature of, well, just being alive, right?
So it's about holding those two things at once, that stable grounding and that natural flow.
Precisely. And by anchoring your attention to these sensations, to this kind of dance between stillness and movement, that's where you start to cultivate presence.
It's amazing how easy it is to lose touch with those really basic sensations in the rush of daily life, isn't it?
It's true. We get so caught up in our heads, and often we only notice our bodies when something's wrong.
Totally. Like, oh, I have a headache.
Exactly. A headache, tension, an upset stomach. But this is about cultivating awareness, even when there's no drama.
Which, let's be honest, can be a challenge in itself. Our minds, they're experts at finding distraction.
They really are.
Which kind of brings us to those infamous obstacles in meditation. The 5 hindrances.
Ah, yes. Desire, ill will, sloth, and torpor, which is basically sleepiness, mental sluggishness, restlessness and worry, and doubt.
Yeah, not exactly the recipe for inner peace we were going for.
Right.
So how do we work with these? How do we navigate these mental roadblocks when they inevitably pop up?
Well, one thing that Ajahn Kemasri really emphasizes, and I think it's so helpful, is that these hindrances, they're not failures, they're not something to be ashamed of.
Right.
They're actually opportunities for deeper self-understanding.
That's a good way to look at it.
It's less about, banishing them and more about approaching them with a sense of curiosity. Like, oh, hello, what's going on here?
Okay, I like that. More curiosity, less inner critic. But what does that look like practically? Say I'm sitting there meditating, and suddenly I'm craving, a giant slice of chocolate cake.
Chuckles. Yeah, we've all been there, right? So in that scenario, with desire, The antidote that Ajahn Kemasri offers is recognizing impermanence.
Impermanence.
Yeah. That cake might sound amazing right now, but is it really going to satisfy in the long run? Just recognizing that things change, that even that craving will pass, that can help loosen its grip a little.
So it's not about suppressing the craving, it's more about shifting your perspective on it.
Exactly. Now, with ill will, which might show up as frustration or judgment, the antidote is loving kindness, or metta.
Ah, metta. We hear that word a lot in meditation circles. What does it really mean?
It's about cultivating a sense of compassion and understanding, even and maybe especially towards ourselves. Because that inner critic, it can be pretty harsh.
Oh, tell me about it.
Right.
It's so much easier to be compassionate to other people than to ourselves.
It really can be. But directing that metta inward, offering ourselves that same kindness and acceptance, it can be really powerful.
So how do we actually do that? How do we cultivate metta, especially for ourselves?
We'll dive more into that after a short break.
So we're getting better at recognizing these obstacles. We've got our mental toolkit ready. But what are we actually moving towards with all this? What's the goal?
Well, in the Buddhist tradition, it's not so much about reaching a specific goal. It's more about cultivating certain qualities that naturally lead to greater peace and freedom from suffering,
Okay, I like that.
And Ajahn Kemasri mentions the 7 factors of awakening: mindfulness, investigation, energy, joy, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity.
Okay, that's a lot of big words. It's like the ultimate self-improvement checklist.
Yeah.
But how do those factors actually show up in our practice, in our lives?
It's helpful to think of them as all interconnected, like different aspects of an awakened mind, each one supporting and strengthening the others.
Okay, I'm with you.
So mindfulness, like we've been talking about, that's the foundation. Then there's investigation. It's about bringing a curious and discerning attention to our experience.
So not just noticing, but like really looking at what's going on.
Yes, exactly. And then energy. That's the fuel that keeps us going.
So it's not about being blissed out all the time.
Right. It's an active thing.
There's an engagement there.
Yes. And from that engagement, from the interplay of those factors, that's where joy and tranquility can arise. Those states of peace and well-being that we often associate with meditation.
And I'm guessing concentration plays a role in all of this, quieting that monkey mind so we can actually experience those deeper states.
Absolutely. Concentration is what allows us to kind of stabilize the mind, to focus our attention so those insights can come through.
Okay.
And then finally, there's equanimity, that sense of balance and acceptance.
Ah, equanimity. It's like that deep, unwavering sense of okayness regardless of what's happening around us.
Exactly. Beautifully said. And you know what Ajahn Kemasri reminds us, that all these qualities, while they're cultivated through meditation, they're not meant to be confined to the meditation cushion.
It's not about escaping from the world.
Right.
It's about bringing that same awareness to everything we do.
Exactly. So whether you're navigating a tricky conversation or dealing with a stressful deadline or even just enjoying a quiet cup of tea.
These practices can help us show up more fully.
Yes. With greater peace and understanding.
I like that. So as we leave this virtual retreat, setting our deep dive into Ajahn Kemasri's teachings, here's something I'm thinking about. What resonated most deeply with you? What small shift in perspective or practice might help you cultivate greater presence, peace, and understanding in your own life?
Maybe it's that visualization of the central column, or bringing a little more metta to your interactions, or something else entirely. Whatever it is, we encourage you to explore it. See how these ancient practices can bring new meaning to your modern life.
Until next time, keep diving, friends.